In the last lecture, we looked at America's involvement in the Cold War abroad. In this lecture, we'll be looking at how the United States fought communism at home. Bert the Turtle was a public service announcement created by the U.S. Civil Service Department in order to teach Americans how to protect themselves in the event of a nuclear attack. Bert the Turtle taught Americans to duck and cover in the event of a nuclear attack. Additionally, families built fallout shelters in their backyard to be prepared in the case of a nuclear attack. These shelters would be built underground and would be stocked with the necessities so that Americans could stay underground until the threat of nuclear fallout had passed. The Red Scare Part 2 can be symbolized by the HUAC, the House Un-American Activities Committee. Their goal was to seek out communists, especially in Hollywood, and they would ask these actors and directors, "Are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?" When actors refused to answer the question, they would be blacklisted, meaning not only would they not be hired for new films, but their films would not be shown in movie theaters across the country. This could be quite damaging to a Hollywood elite's career. In addition to Hollywood actors and actresses, several other Americans were accused and convicted of crimes against the country. Alger Hiss was a State Department, meaning that he worked for the foreign policy part of the government. He was a State Department official who was accused of spying on the country and convicted of perjury. Ethel and Julius Rosenberg were a married couple who were Soviet immigrants and were convicted of leaking information about the development of the atomic bomb to the USSR. They were both sentenced to death, making Ethel Rosenberg one of the very few women to ever be put to death by the government. Joseph McCarthy was the main one behind these accusations of communism. He accused government officials of being communists, making many unfounded claims about their actions. He would stand in front of the press and say, "I have a list. On this list are all the communists within the federal government right now." This led to something known as McCarthyism, or the fear of communism and accusing people of being communists. Often people would accuse others of being communist for their own economic gain or political gain. So if someone was standing in McCarthy's way, they would be accused of being a communist. Arthur Miller was inspired by these events when he wrote The Crucible. The Crucible, while set during the Salem witch trials in the 1600s, was inspired by McCarthy's accusations in the 1950s, with Arthur Miller comparing the McCarthyism of the 1950s to the witch hunts of the 1600s. McCarthy was eventually exposed after journalist Edward R. Murrow began to broadcast on his TV show See It Now about McCarthy's unfounded claims. Predictably, McCarthy called not only Edward R. Murrow a communist, but also CBS. Murrow's broadcasts led to a backlash against McCarthy and his eventual fall from political grace. The Eisenhower Doctrine is in the same vein as the Marshall Plan and the Truman Doctrine. In the Eisenhower Doctrine, Eisenhower said that the United States would provide economic and military aid to any country in the Middle East that asked for help resisting communist aggression. This would eventually lead to the armament of the Middle East, when both the Soviet Union and the United States were fighting for control over the area. Many of the conflicts found in the Middle East today can be traced back to this time. Harry Truman, president at the end of World War II, wanted to continue the good work done by FDR's The New Deal. He tried to pass the Fair Deal legislation, which would extend Social Security, increase low-income housing, provide more aid to public schools, provide health care for more Americans, provide crop subsidies for farmers. However, given that America's economy was doing so much better, the Fair Deal was difficult to get passed. When FDR went to be elected, before FDR was reelected, he made the first firm stand on civil rights by desegregating the armed forces. He realized that this may make it difficult for him to be reelected, but knew that he had to do it for moral reasons, saying that, "I am asking for equality of opportunity for all human beings, and if that ends up being my failure to be reelected, that failure will be in good cause." This action led to the formation of the Dixiecrats, which is a group of Southern Democrats who are against civil rights. The Dixiecrats nominated Strom Thurmond, the Democrats renominated Harry Truman, and the Republicans nominated Dewey. Dewey was predicted to win, yet Truman managed to pull it off. Shortly after re-election, however, Truman's approval rating sank to an all-time low of 23%. This was due primarily to two different things, one of which being the stalemate of the Korean War, with neither side winning, the other being McCarthyism. With McCarthyism, you were in one of two parties. Either you agreed with McCarthy and believed him that the federal government was full of communists, in which case you no longer had faith in the federal government, or you believed that McCarthy was lying and you knew that the federal government was being run by one crazy loner, Joseph McCarthy. Either way, you were ready for a change, which meant that in the election of 1952, former World War II general, leader of D-Day, Dwight D. Eisenhower, a Republican, was elected to office.